Welcome to the Startup Grind.
All right, everyone. Welcome tonight. Thank you so much for coming out for Google's Startup Grind. My name is Laura Corder. I work for USC's Office of Economic Engagement, and we help put on programs like this for the community as a whole. And we're so excited to have one of Columbia's newest technology companies here in town, Frank with Scootaway. Just to give you a brief description of what Startup Grind is 9 times out of the year, we try to feature a local startup, mentor, investor, somebody like that, to help tell their story and how they're involved with startups. So if you guys know of anybody or interested yourselves in being featured, please find me, let me know. Because what happens is these are recorded, and they are then distributed through Google's global platform. So this helps build all of Columbia as a whole and puts us on a global platform. So thank you all so much for coming tonight. How it works is, go ahead, you can come in. Come on in. How it works is we have about 40 minutes of just interview between Frank and I, very conversational, very casual, and then it's about 15, 20 minutes of Q&A from you guys. So with that, if we are ready, Christian, we're good? Okay, then I'm going to kick it off with our first question. So this is I always start off with when I do these is, was there ever a moment in which you just decided, I'm going to be an entrepreneur? Because I feel like you don't just wake up, you just don't say, you don't start off from the beginning of, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And how did that even become an option for you?
I don't know if there was a specific moment that I said I'm going to be an entrepreneur, like somebody's going to say I'm going to be a doctor or I'm going to be an astronaut or a firefighter, but at a pretty early age, when I was about 17 years old, I decided to start a t-shirt company. But if you want to go back even further than that, I used to go when I was in grade school and buy bulk candy from the local candy store, and then I would sell it to the other kids in school because they didn't sell candy at the school I went to. So I guess that's really the first time. And I got in trouble for it a few times because you weren't supposed to be selling candy because it was banned at our school. But really probably the first entrepreneurial thing I did is when I was here at USC, and a few of my friends started a bar and I helped them. And I did all the marketing and advertising for the bar. And so then I started to design and silkscreen my own t-shirts and sell them at the bar, both for the bar and then other designs for myself to make extra money. And that's kind of how it probably kicked off right there.
So basically for you, entrepreneurship kind of started more from the marketing side of it than maybe a coder developing a new product, something like that. You saw an opportunity from the marketing side with the bar to help promote the bar.
Yeah, I've always been creative. I went to school for marketing and advertising, and I just was looking for a way to make extra cash in college, to be honest with you.
It sounds like from the candy to just looking ways to find some cash, you're a problem solver.
Yeah, I think so.
So it's a trait of many of our entrepreneurs. So if I know that you've been involved with a lot of different startups. What has been some of the hurdles that you've encountered with, let's say the bar, for example, and helping your friends start the bar? That experience. Talk a little bit about that. Sounds like that was one of the first bigger experiences of having a company up and running. How did you get over some of those hurdles?
Well, for the bar, I did all the marketing and advertising, and of course, we had to drive people to the bar, so I helped drive people to the bar in some different ways. I mean, from the marketing, the naming it, the no-brainer, doing the graphics, but I had a tactic that got a lot of people to the bar that I don't know if we're so proud of it, but we basically would give the prettiest girls we knew on campus free drinks from 7 till 9, and a crowd attracts a crowd. And so the first thing would happen is the girls would be there drinking at the bar for free. The guys would see them. They would come in because of the girls. Then everybody would be coming because of the crowd. And so that's was kind of a cheap ploy, but it worked well.
Sounds like a Saturday night in 5 Points.
That's where we were.
So what advice of the version of yourself would you have given yourself 5, 10 years ago?
Quit being an entrepreneur. No, really, I mean, I would have given myself the advice that, try not to get so upset about things that fail. And now I don't get as upset, but I still get pretty upset.
So you want to go a little further, like what is, give an example of something that's quote unquote failed. And how did you pivot from that?
99% of the things I've done have failed. And I would think that probably 99% of every entrepreneur, unless you're extremely lucky, 99% of what most entrepreneurs do fail. Whether it's a whole idea that completely failed or components within that business or that technology you're building or whatever it is fail.
So with all that trial and error, how did you keep yourself motivated?
For me, it's just I don't like to fail, and the more I fail, the more I want to fix what I did and prove to everybody that I'm not going to fail. And it's just you get to a point of almost where you're in too deep now. I mean, if you just can't give up. It's like if you're sitting at a blackjack table and you're down all of this money and you've got to get the money back. And so you just stay there and stay there and stay there and stay there. So I've been at the blackjack table for a really long time, and I'm expecting to get my money back pretty soon here.
So I know most people in the room know that you were fortunate enough to be featured on Shark Tank.
Is that what you call it, fortunate?
Well, I just wanted to, I know you've talked so much about it, and I don't want to spend all our time, obviously, on it, but please, for those who are unaware, talk a little bit about your experience with it. How did that even become an option of something you should even try and go do?
Well, I kind of got on Shark Tank a little bit different than most people got on Shark Tank because a friend of mine applied for the show for me, and I never even knew. And then he applied one night messing around on his computer on the couch because I had this small bikini business that was patented and kind of unique. And he forgot about it, and he never told me he did it. And so one day, I get a phone call from the producers of ABC, and they say, "This is Shark Tank, and we want you to be on TV for your swimsuit business." And I said, "Well, I'm not getting in the water with any sharks," because I really didn't know what the show was at the time. And I thought it was a show about sharks, and then they explained it to me. And they said, "Do you want to be on the show? It's a business show." And so I said, "Let me get back to you." I looked it up. And I called my friend, Adam DiSilvestro, and he said, "Oh yeah, I forgot I did that." And he's like, "You never saw the show?" So I looked it up, and so I called him back, and I said, "Yeah, I think I might be interested in doing this." And they said, "Well, you have to put together a pitch video. So we want to see pretend that you're in front of the sharks and put together with some of your friends a pitch video to us, and then we'll go from there." So I put together a pitch video and sent it in, and they liked the pitch video, and they got back to me, and then for about 6 months, they put me through the ringer to get on the show. I mean, it was question after question and background check, and it's a very long, tedious, difficult process to be on the show.
So the last thing I'll ask about it is, we have a lot of different pitch workshops, and we're fortunate enough to have 1 Million Cups here and pitch competitions, and so especially with the incubator and at USC, we do a lot of different workshops on helping people prepare their pitches. How did you prepare for your actual pitch that night? I know you talked about your video, but I mean, what advice would you give somebody that is going to be pitching to an investor, potential investor?
Well, the first thing is if you don't believe in yourself and you don't believe in your product, you're already dead in the water. Don't even bother, right? So, I mean, you have to be so passionate about what you do and your product. So if you don't believe in it, then they're not going to believe in it. So that's got to come through. So, I mean, some people are more natural speakers and don't get nervous, and some aren't. So, be prepared. And if you're not really good at public speaking or just being able to speak about your product one-on-one with people, I would say probably go take some type of speaking class to get better, because no matter what's inside your head, no matter what's inside your heart, if you're not able to communicate that with the person listening, and you don't get the passion of what's inside of you across to them, then how can they get passionate about it, and then how could they want to give you their money? It won't happen.
Very good advice. So since you've been involved with several other companies, how do you assess an opportunity as an entrepreneur?
Something that people want that nobody else is doing, but a lot of that is being at the right place at the right time and having a technology ready and being able to marry something like that with a need. When I was in Chicago many, many years ago, I actually thought about streaming television and taking TV shows and putting it on the internet, but this is back when it was AOL and it was the dial-up. You've got mail, I mean, the bandwidth wasn't there. It was way before its time. We're going back like, I don't know, 15 years ago, and I pitched it to a gentleman named Alex Peabody, who was extremely wealthy and was interested. And the more research we did, it was too far ahead of its time at that point, and we weren't big enough to try to do something with it, and so it fell by the wayside. But now with my new business, Scootaway, technology was at the right place, and there was what I thought was a need for it, and I was able to, this time, fortunately, take my idea and have the technology out there in the marketplace to support the idea.
So with that, you perfect transition to, I know that you've transitioned from your company that you did have on Shark Tank and are now focused solely on Scootaway. Where did that concept come from?
So I still am living in New York. I'm down here now for the time being, but I was working for a company as head of marketing that was trying to compete with Uber. And I'll leave the company's name out of it. But within a very short amount of time, I got thousands of people to download the app. Now, what they were trying to do is compete with Uber by giving the same type of service, yet at a better price without the Uber surge pricing. And we had good marketing. We got people to download the app, but we were unable to get enough drivers. So we had the demand, but the supply wasn't there. At the same time, I was riding a Vespa scooter around New York City because it's an easy way to get around. I was using Zipcar. I was using City Bike. And I was out with my friend one night, same guy, Adam DiSilvestro, who had put the thing in for the bikini business with Shark Tank. And we were just, goofing around, having a beer. And I said, what am I going to do? We don't have the cars. Everybody downloads the app, but then they try it once. They can't get a car, and then they, blow it off. So the company I was working for was, in my opinion, ready to go under, and I was scared because, that was my job. I said, you know what we need to do? We'll get people to be on Vespas and pick people up. And then we started laughing. I was like, that's probably not a good idea. And so then I said, well, what about, like City Bike and with the scooters? And so I started looking into the laws, and I found out that in pretty much every state across the United States, you didn't need a motorcycle license if the scooter was 49 cc's and only went 30 miles per hour. Because if you needed a motorcycle license, I don't have a customer base. You have 1 in 200 people in the United States, if that, have a motorcycle license. So when I did the research and I found out that you didn't need a motorcycle license if it was 49 cc's and went 30 miles per hour, it was like bing, bing, light bulbs. I was like, this is something I could really pursue. At the same time, I knew my job was basically going under because the startup company that was trying to compete with Uber was basically out of money. Right. And I hated the job anyways, I really did. I couldn't take it. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go for this. This is an unbelievable idea. I built a prototype in Brooklyn with a very smart guy I knew that installed stereos. And we built the prototype, and I started a Facebook page, and I started riding the prototype around New York City and asking everybody and showing them from the app, look, I can start the scooter from the app. They're like, that's cool. I was like, okay, great. So finally, everybody was like, you really need to do something about this. And then I took the other steps to do something, went to China, developed this brain, developed apps, and here we are. I needed a place to test it, and I wanted to come back to USC and test it here. So
let's talk a little bit more about the technology piece of it. Okay. I don't want to fly by that because we're building such a thriving technology community here. Now, if you can talk a little bit more on the development on the actual technology piece of it, and for those who don't know, go ahead and explain a little bit the process of how the scooters work with the phone and
sure.
Basically the user experience with Scootaway.
Right. So basically, you've got typical smartphone, whether it's an iPhone or an Android device, and we have an app that we built, and this app has a chip in it from AT&T, Verizon, the same chip that's in all of your smartphones sitting here today. And this chip has communication, and it's got GPS. Your phone always knows where you are at all times. So if you commit a crime, throw it in the garbage. And then you've got this device, which we call the brain, which I developed in China, that is essentially a cell phone without a phone number. This device as well has the same chip that's in your phone, whether it's AT&T, which this one is AT&T because we're doing a partnership deal with AT&T right now. T-Mobile, Verizon, it really wouldn't matter. Or if you were in another country, it wouldn't matter, as long as you're able to get a signal and get GPS. So essentially, this box has GPS and communicates with this phone, and then you build an app that takes care of all your other functions: starting, stopping, starting a scooter, stopping a scooter, popping open the seat of a scooter to get a helmet, and they just interact with each other. So that's the hardware component of it, and then there's the app component of it.
Okay, so often one of the biggest struggles we hear for early stage startups is funding, especially for prototypes. We have a lot of inventors here in town, especially being one of the largest research universities in the U.S. Lots of inventors. So how did you get through that stage and getting to where you are now?
Be willing to risk every last dime you have, and because investors want to see that you risk something besides your own idea. So you needed to have risked at least some of your own money. So whatever you got to do to somehow get some of your own money and get your own money in first, it really says a lot to an investor when you were willing to take the risk. If you're not willing to risk any of your own money into something, and even if you don't have that much money, if you have $5,000, but you go to the investors and you say, look, I only had $5,000, I believe in my idea so much I put the entire $5,000 in, but I have a great idea, you have more money, put it in. So first thing is be able to risk your own money. And if you can't risk the money, then, you know, it's a hard thing to try to convince an investor that you're not going to risk your own money and you're trying to get them to risk theirs.
So talk about the app development process, because that's what's unique about your company to me, is that you have the hardware component of the actual scooter, but then the actual app. Talk about the app development piece of it.
And then there's the server side component, right? So I mean, there's the servers that are in between that make all of this communicate. But as far as the app development, I mean, I don't know how to develop an app. I have no idea how to develop an app. So what do? You go out and you surround yourself with people that do know how to develop an app, and you kind of, I guess I'm the architect, actually, of the app, as far as this is what I want, this is how I want it to work. Can that be done? No, it can't be, it's impossible. Okay, what if we did this? And then you go out and you have to either hire a firm to do your app development, or you find an individual to do your app development. I personally went the route of finding individuals and hiring them in-house and working with them. I personally feel that that's a lot better way to do it, because they're invested into your company more than just going to a third party and saying, you know, here's money, build my app. And while they're working on 5 other companies, because especially if you're the low company on the totem pole, not spending as much as the other companies, then your work and what's going to need to be done for you is going to get bumped behind the person that's spending 10 times as much as you.
And you just touched on a very critical thing with us, especially because at the incubator we hear, I probably have heard 30, 40, 50 app pitches to me over the past few years. Everybody's got an app idea. But, you know, what components make up your startup team? I mean, we talk a lot about to people, you know, you're not going to be good at everything, like you just said. I don't know the first thing about developing an app. So you went and found and started building out a team. But who else makes up your team? Who it's like you had to have 5 people that are going to be on the boat with you or on your scooter with you. You know, who is going to be there to make sure that it's successful? What kind of people?
Well, first of all, you need your investors, and then you need yourself. And in my case, first I needed a main app developer. And I needed one that spoke perfect Chinese because I'm developing everything in China, so I killed 2 birds with 1 stone. The next thing I needed was a back-end engineer. So that was the next piece of the component, so that we could at least get the prototype up and running to get this to the next level and then get to the next level investment, because investment comes in rounds, right? I mean, there was my first money in, then there was next money in, And then there's next money in and next money in and next money in and next money in, and it could go on forever. But nobody just hands you a check for all of it. They keep some money back, and you've got to reach your goals. So the first two people that I needed was the front-end development, the app development, and the back-end server developer. So those are the first two employees that I hired. Once we had that done, then we had to hire more people to join that team to get us to the next level. And then coming down here to South Carolina to start the test market, then I had to start hiring, managers and employees and people for marketing. But still, it's a very, very, very small team we have right now, about 10 people.
So do you find it a challenge to recruit people to be a part of your team? You're asking them to leave maybe potentially a stable job, or, did you find it difficult to recruit the right people, and how did you go about doing it? How did you pitch to somebody, join me in this venture?
Well, for the first two people that I hired, the software developer, the app developer, and the back-end engineer, I found them through an IT staffing firm that belonged to a friend of mine. And it's called, well, I'll leave that out of it. But I brought them in, and when I went to the staffing firm, I said, I need people who are very entrepreneurial and that are looking for an opportunity, that don't want to be stuck behind a desk at IBM or at a bank or whatever, doing the same job, even though they all get paid very well. Both of my main people took probably about a 40% pay cut to come work for me, with the upside of stock options and this company really going somewhere, and them being, instead of working for other people within a larger organization, hopefully growing this to a larger organization and them being at top. So the same way that you asked me if you have to pitch and be passionate to the investors to get good people, you've got to get them to believe in your company and willing to take that risk too. Because my head back-end engineer took a big pay cut, and so did my app developer, took a sizable pay cut to come work with us in hopes that we're going to get big. So it's just, they've got to see your vision. So you got to be able to get your vision across to them.
So you would say, almost aside from hiring the technical ability, you're hiring a mentality.
Absolutely.
And a lifestyle.
It's a mentality. And that's before in the interviews, before I even bothered to know if their technical skills were there. And I knew that their technical skills were probably there by looking at their resume. But I needed, the first part of the interview was me just going back and forth and, talking, what do you think of my idea, and what can you do to improve on what I told you about my idea, and seeing, how passionate they were. And if somebody wasn't passionate, even if they had a better resume than the person that was passionate, I leaned towards the people that had the passion.
Hear all that, college students? I know you're in here. So we've talked a little bit about the technology side. Is it all of it combined together that makes this unique? How does this really separate itself from the other rideshare? Rideshare is becoming a very popular, almost call it its own industry. Is it all of it together, or is it more of the user experience that makes it unique?
Well, first of all, nobody was really doing it with gas-powered scooters anywhere in the country. And there was another company out in San Francisco that was doing it. And when you talk about technology being ahead of its time, they were doing it with electric scooters. There's one other company that has a ride-sharing program with electric scooters, and not to put them down, but they shot themselves in the foot. Because when I started looking at this, I said, how can they do this with electric scooters? And let's face it, electric scooters just aren't there yet. Every 6 hours, they have to be recharged. Every charging station costs you tens of thousands of dollars to implement, and it was too expensive. Now, scooters already get 90 to 100 miles per gallon, so already they're very efficient, and filling them with gas is a lot easier than trying to fill them with electricity. And electricity, you get 6 hours. My scooters can go forever. My scooters can go for 100 hours before it needs to get a recharge, because my recharge is gasoline. And in addition to that, I already have 30 parking stations around the USC and Columbia area, and those parking stations literally cost me about $10. I get some paint or some tape, and I stripe them off, and I put up a $10 sign on a post, and then I have my engineers go and GPS the spot. I put those GPS coordinates into the back end of our system, and then it allows you only to return the scooter within that area. So A, it was a necessity. I couldn't afford as a small business getting up and running to try to have some kind of fancy way, like even with gasoline powered, people are like, well, why don't you have a place where you can like a fancy thing like City Bike has, where they have to push in and all that, and you've got to install them, and you've got to jackhammer stuff up, and you've got to be intrusive to the people that are using the parking lots. And that was a nightmare, so I had to come up with a different solution that was basically free, and I worked with the engineers to come up with that solution. I said, this is what I want to do, can you do it? And we worked around it, and we figured out, yes, we could do it. So that alone gave us a huge advantage.
So as a person that lives in the downtown area, why am I going to use Scootaway?
Because you can't find any place to park, and we have designated parking spaces. I have some more beyond that, but that's probably the #1 reason. I mean, also, if you're a college student, you don't own a car, I mean, and you know you can get one outside of the apartment complex you live in, and you know you can go drop it off in front of the class that you have, and it's only $2.99, gas, insurance, everything included. I mean, to me, I would have loved to have that when I went to school here. I mean, I was either driving around looking for parking, and then if I couldn't find parking, I would either blow off class, which I did so many times, or I would get a parking ticket because I had to get to that class, so I would double park, I'd come out, I have a parking ticket. So it's a great way to get around, it's fun, it's easy, and you know, I mean, it puts you to point A to point B with no responsibility. You get off and you walk away.
So I think the one thing that we haven't touched on completely is, so okay, I'm on campus and I want to find a scooter to get from my next class. How does I pull up my phone, I click on the Scootaway app, how does this work, and how does the costing structure work and things like that?
Well, I'll try to hold up the app and see if people can see it, but essentially you can download, by the way, Scootaway Scooters from your iPhone or Android, and once you download the app, there's 3 main screens. There's your screen that shows you where all the scooters are. There's a control screen, and then there's a settings tab. In the location screen, every one of these little red dots are pick-up and drop-off locations. And of course, because of the GPS, the little blue dot is you. So you can see the map, you know where you are. You're like, oh, I'm right by that one. You click on it, and it shows you the name of the parking spot, the address, and it shows you how many scooters are there. You see what scooters are there, and you pick the one you want, and you simply hit rent. You sign off on the user agreement. I'm not going to drink and drive. I'm going to wear my helmet, all those types of things. You agree, and with the press of a button, you rented that scooter. So now, once that scooter is rented, great, you're all set. The next screen that comes up is a very simple screen, and even though the technology behind our app is very intense and took a very long time to develop, the user commands are pretty simple. There's only 3 commands. There's one command, when I click this, it opens up the seat in the scooter, so someone's going to steal all my stuff right now. And then the next, so the trunk just opened up, and now I could get my helmets out of there for safety. And then I click the next command, and it unlocks the scooter. And then I literally, now the scooter's unlocked, it beeps, beep, beep, and then you just hop on and you start it like a traditional scooter. As soon as I turn that scooter off, instead of making you have an unlock or a lock button, after 30 seconds it shuts itself down, so if you have the scooter rented, nobody else can take it, and it's a security issue. You go to the grocery store where you're not in an actual designated parking spot, it shuts itself off, you run in, you simply come back, you hit the unlock button again, and the scooter unlocks itself. It's only when you take that scooter back to a pick-up drop-off location, which you can find on the map, and you hit return, then the scooter returns itself to the location, and that's when you stop getting charged, and you can simply walk away, and that's it.
So you just talked a little bit about the complexities of actually building the app, and that's a perfect segue into, let's talk a little bit about the hurdles that you face in actually building the technology. What's been the most difficult thing to get past? And I'm sure there's probably been 10 versions of this app, and you know, was there ever
18 versions? let me start with this. The number one problem that we had was this, that similar to, like there's companies that make similar things for cars. But with a car, you've got a big, huge battery and lots of power. With the scooter, you've got a small battery. So our number one thing with this was a couple things. Location services and making sure the GPS is stronger, but battery drainage. Just like, I mean, to this day, I mean, the biggest company in the world, Apple, I'm sure the thing that they think about the most is how do we make the battery last longer and how do we get it in there, you're right? I mean, the battery life. So we had to go through 18 versions to finally get to a point with this black box that it wasn't draining so much power on the battery that the scooter could sit for at least 5 days with the GPS signal always running, right? Because even when the scooter is parked, the GPS signal is still drawing power. So it's making the circuitry smaller and all kinds of things that the hardware engineers did to get us to that point. So we went through about 18 versions of this, and we're working on number 19 right now, and we'll always keep coming out with versions. As far as the app, it's not so much versions, it's just doing new bug fixes and new releases to the actual app itself. And then you have to get all those together, and then you release it to Apple and Android, and even when you do that, it's a couple weeks. So that's what we're doing here in Columbia, South Carolina, more than anything else, is testing the technology. Because you build a back-end testing environment for all the engineers in the room or watching would know, and you try to test that on the computer in a simulated world, but it's really not until real life when you get out here to see how it really works, and then also come up with things like, ooh, we didn't think about that, right? So there were even some things that we hadn't thought about until we had people out here in Columbia using them and riding them. So we are on many versions of this. And then with it being said of doing a test down here, that was a difficult proposition because we had to switch our marketing because we weren't getting the message across as a company that this is a test. It's a test. We need your help. People are complaining. And so finally we changed our marketing, since it's a college town, to tests suck, but testing scooters is fun because people are frustrated, right? I mean, it's been 6 weeks, and the first week was disastrous. The day after our launch party, there were all kinds of registration issues that ended up being something stupid like an SSL certificate that wasn't installed properly, but yet we were up for like 72 hours straight trying to figure it out. And then slowly but surely, a new bug fix, a new bug fix, a new bug fix, a new bug fix, and to where we are right now, where I'd say we're about 95% of the way to where it's a stable environment and the app's working very well, and 99.9 times out of the time it's going to give a good user experience.
Yeah, you said that you came to Columbia for your connections that you had here, the weather, things like that, but has the university and the city done anything to help with your company?
The city and the university have been great and have helped a lot with not so much the company itself. However, they've helped me with the parking, and they've embraced the idea because they see the benefit of it to the students, to the residents, and also to maybe help congestion of the parking. The president of the university, we've met with him, and he's very supportive. All the people in the parking division, people from the board of trustees from the university, city council voted unanimously for our test. The Mayor Benjamin, has been phenomenal, and he's a big champion of business for the city and to bring in new economic opportunities. So I couldn't thank Mayor Benjamin enough for supporting us. So yeah, everybody's been very supportive and are continuing to be very supportive.
So aside from the university and the city of Columbia, what do you think the response from the overall community has been? Students? Better
than I ever expected, to be honest with you. We have a document out there called Word on the Street that we send out, and we update it weekly. And it's amazing to me what the people are saying and how much they like it. I mean, it's the best thing ever. Why didn't I think of that? Oh, you're going to be rich, this, that. Well, I mean, I hope the last one of that becomes true. But,
so do your investors?
Yeah, they certainly do as well. But yeah, everybody is super supportive, and the biggest complaint I get is when are more scooters coming? When are more scooters coming? You know, hurry up and get more scooters here. And we're working on it. We will have a lot more scooters here by fall semester, August 20th.
So what's next for Scootaway?
Next for Scootaway is we are bringing three-wheeled scooters, which are easier to ride and fun and I guess more stable. I still personally like the two-wheelers, but we're bringing three-wheel scooters into the mix for people that don't want to ride the two-wheel scooters. So from I guess that standpoint, we're adding new product line to our line. But what's next for Scootaway is our next city, which we're talking with Charleston, South Carolina right now. So we hope that we're able to get into Charleston. We still have some hurdles to go over there, but hopefully they're going to be supportive. And after that, it is probably going to be Miami. So what's next for Scootaway is that we plan on being in at least 10 cities with 5,000 scooters on the road by this time next year. And 10 times that the following year, and the following year, and the following year, until we are the Uber of scooters and listed on the NASDAQ, and our goal is to be listed on the NASDAQ by 2018, because we are a technology company as much as we are a transportation company.
So any final remarks before we open it up for Q&A from the audience?
Not really, but thank you all for coming.
All right, I know there's got to be some questions in the room.
I have a question. Where is that device located on the scooter?
I can't tell you that. No, it's inside the scooter, underneath in the frame, hard enough for people to get to, easy enough for our 24-hour safety road crew to get to in case it needs to be swapped out or if it goes offline. But I don't want the world to know where it is.
Right, I understand. And so what was the bar that you started with in down,
In 5 Points. Well, right now it's called CJ's, if anyone's familiar with 5 Points. But when my friend started it and I helped them start it, it was called The No-Brainer. And right here in the front audience, my friend Mike was one of the owners.
Okay.
And also a board member of Scootaway Scooters and very helpful and influential in making sure the test market in Columbia has gone great. So I can't thank my friend Mike enough.
Hang on, we're going to wait for...
Would you consider taking this back to Shark Tank?
No, I would not.
And why?
Because A, frankly, I don't need to. I have the investment money. B, on Shark Tank, they are greedy as hell. Rude. And I just...
There's
No,
other ways
I
to
won't.
find your funding.
There are many other ways to find funding. It's great for publicity, and I would advise if you go on Shark Tank, don't make a deal. Just get the publicity.
What else?
Because you're going to make a bad deal. Because you're going to be nervous, you're going to be on TV, you're going to feel forced to make a bad deal. And they usually offer up some pretty bad deals. So just go up there, get the publicity. I know companies on Shark Tank that have done very well for themselves just because of the publicity they get by being on the show.
Tell me about the brain. Why going to China, and did you have you patented or any issues regarding that?
Well, patent pending, of course, pretty much probably everybody in this room knows that it takes years to get a patent. The reason I went to China to build the brain is simply because I couldn't find anybody in the United States to do it, because I tried. And the reason I make the scooters in China is because there's not one scooter manufacturer in the United States. This is obviously a problem, and that is why we're already talking to our Asian manufacturers, because we know we're going to be making so many scooters to potentially bring the manufacturing here to Carolina, and my friend and business partner Mike Campbell is going to try to champion that effort for us. Anybody else?
Come on, don't be scared. He's not a shark.
Not yet.
So
Next
when,
time I'm on Shark Tank, I'm going to be the shark.
So when someone rents a scooter, do they have to fill it back up with gas when they return it, or do you have people come by to fill up with gas?
As a matter of fact, you can't even fill it up with gas because the gas tank is behind a lock and key. The gas and all the maintenance and safety and security checks are done by a team that drives around Columbia. Right now, since it's a test with only 38 scooters, there's only one truck. But as we expand into the 250 scooters by August 20th and 500 scooters total following that, we'll have multiple trucks on the road. The scooters get 90 miles to the gallon, and each scooter holds 2 gallons, so it can go 180 miles before it needs to get filled up. So, I mean, there will be no point that a person will run out of gas before our road crew can get to it and fill it with gas. Well, good question.
And just to follow up to that.
Sure, go ahead.
With the app, can you check which scooters are low on gas, or do you have to go to each station and check each one if they need to be filled?
Right now, the app doesn't know. First of all, that the consumer app will never know. It's no information that a consumer needs because there's a gas gauge on it. So just like in your car, there's a gas gauge, the consumer will never need to know. We have the capability on our end of our technology in our back-end server to be able to know how much gas is in a scooter. But the scooters we're using right now are analog gas gauges, but we're moving towards a scooter with a digital gas gauge, and once that's done, just like starting the scooter and popping the seat, we'll be able to monitor that on our back end and be able to set alerts to the road crew to go fill it up, just like we're able to set alerts to the road crew for other various things based on technology. But good question again.
Hey, I just wanted to ask you, it seems like you've had, you're like a serial entrepreneur. You've been in the trenches, since you were 17, even younger. What have some of like your failures in some of your previous ventures taught you to be successful now?
Well, I'm not sure I'm successful now. We'll see. The verdict's still out on that. I mean, I feel I'm successful in my life. I mean, I'm nowhere near as successful as I want to be. Scootaway is going amazing. I've been offered by my investors to be bought out that would have made me very successful right now. But I'm either stupid or greedy, or I just don't know what I would do with myself if I sold right now. And I really think that the business is worth 100 times what I was offered already. My failures in the past have taught me a lot of things, but the number one thing, and I know it sounds really, really, really cliche, is just not to give up. But, I mean, you can break it down into little things. I would have to think back, but, I mean, this went wrong. Oh, I could have done this differently. So you learn little things, but I think most of my failures have taught me to be a little bit more step back, and instead of trying to push so hard. And sometimes as an entrepreneur, you get stuck in a tunnel of this is the way it has to work because this was my original idea. And I think that can really kill people a lot of times. Or this is my technology and this is what my technology should be used for, right? And I think if you can step back and say, it failed that way, I'm not going to have such tunnel vision. So now I'm a little bit with wider vision. Just today I was at the mall with the general manager of this location, and I saw this really amazing invention that I've never seen before. And I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it's these stuffed animals that are like life-size, and they're electric, and the kids are riding them around. Yep. And I was like, that is genius. And I said, my first inclination was like, because when I see an idea that I didn't think of, that somebody else thought of, I'm mad. I'm like, why didn't I think of that? So I was like, first thing was like, why didn't I think of this? And I was like, damn it. And then I said to myself, let me go look at this thing closer. And I said, okay, great idea, but they're doing it by putting coins in the side of it, right? And they've got a kiosk with a person. I said, if I take my technology, I could stick it in there, and I can run these things from an app. So, of course, I got their card. I'll talk to the president tomorrow. But, yeah, so that's a good example. Like, you know, this is great for the scooters, and I think it could be great, but I'm building a technology and an app here that can have other applications. So if for some reason the scooters fail and people don't want to ride them, which all indications show that that's not going to be what's going to happen because we've had such an overwhelming response, but there are other applications that I could use this technology for. A lot of other applications. You're welcome. Good question. Thank you.
One thing you said in a previous question is one of the first people you'd have on your scooter with you would be your primary investor. And you also said that being on Shark Tank, the investors try to bully you into a bad deal. So as a new investor, how do you go about avoiding a bad deal and making sure that investor has your best interests in mind?
The more money that you could put in to get your technology or your idea further along, the more negotiating power you're going to have, right? I mean, so that's the number one thing. If you can risk your own money, if you have it, the more, whether it's what I'm doing or whether it's opening up an ice cream shop, whatever it is, the more sales you have or the further along with technology you are, then you can make yourself a better deal. I mean, you see that on Shark Tank, right? I mean, the number one questions are, it's either, what are your sales, or show me your patents, right? Everything else doesn't matter. That's all they care about. And even when you say, show me your patents, it's still, what are your sales? So my advice would be just, you know, get it as far along as possible. And then don't ever take more money than you need, right? So I had somebody that wanted to give me $20 million for this. And me and my investors, not give it to invest $20 million. And me and my investors, we didn't take all that much money all at once because we don't need that much money all at once right now. And if you take too much money, then you're just giving away too much of the farm. So just don't be like the light, oh, all this money. I mean, you really need to realize how much money you really need and only take what you really need and try not to give away as much as your company. And another thing is, don't worry about if you own 51% of your company. I know people are hung up on this number of I own 51% of my company, I own 51% of my company, I need control. It's really not like that. I mean, you don't need to own 51% of your company to have control. In most of the instances, unless you're the one with the money, you're not going to own 51% of your company. And that's just the flat, hard reality of what it is to be an entrepreneur. You're not the one with the money, then you're not going to own 51% of your company. But that does not mean that you still can't be CEO of your company. It does not mean you still can't have board and voting rights. There's a lot of ways to structure a company without owning 51% of that company. So don't get hung up on that.
We got time for one more question. I know there's got to be at least one more.
What's your fee structure for renting?
It's $2.99 for every 30 minutes. That includes gas, parking, and insurance. But as we get bigger, we'll work on some new fee structure plans, the same way a cell phone company allows you to buy certain amounts of data for your phone. The more data you buy at a time per month, the cheaper it becomes, so we'll work on those types of plans as well.
And so I've seen your little stands at different places. You don't have to pay rent for that location?
Well, yes and no. Some of the locations we're paying rent because it's like anything else. When you first get started, it's like, who are you guys? What are you doing? And then everybody wants to jump the bandwagon, right? So people saw that it's great. So I'm giving people an opportunity, like people like Granby Mills and people like Wild Wings and Music Farm. They're giving me parking for free. And then there's some people that our company went to and we offered free parking to now. And they're like, oh, we're not interested. I said, okay, well, come back to me in a month when all your students are saying that you have to have it, and I'm charging you. And that's not a joke. That is the God-honest truth. But the city made us some deals for parking, and the university made us deals for parking because they see it's a good opportunity for their students and the residents of Columbia. So as you get bigger, as we get bigger and we grow and we grow and we grow, we plan on never having to pay for parking and potentially even charging people to have them as a pickup and drop-off location, because if you're a pickup and drop-off location, it's a destination where people might go and eat dinner or shop or live if they don't have it. We're going to make Scootaway so big that it's going to be, something that's an afterthought to people. Oh yeah, I use Scootaway, I mean, it's not that they're going to expect you as a business to be allowed to drop it off there so that they can go to your establishment and quit getting charged by us, because you're only getting charged from the time that you're riding it until you put it into a designated spot. So
It's the next utility.
exactly.
Very cool.
So
All right, I'll allow one more.
okay.
Okay, we haven't had one all the way in the back.
I was wondering, what did you use as analogs to come up with the numbers you thought you think you're going to be eating? Did you use like the bicycle rentals, or did you use some of the car fares?
In order to figure out if we're going to turn a profit or not?
Well, you said, well, we're going to have 500 of them. Well,
Oh, okay.
1,000, why not 10,000? Where did you come up with that?
Yeah, we looked at City Bike and the other bike sharing programs. So that was really kind of a basis, and we figured out what the percentage of bikes to residents were, and then we applied that to how many students are at the University of South Carolina based on that percentage, and that's where we came up with 500. Now the nice thing is, if we need more, we bring more. If it's too many, because we're expanding, all we have to do is pick them up and move them to the next city, and we really lost nothing. There's one other thing, this isn't a question, but I want to tell you something. That didn't get touched. The importance of a good business plan is everything. And if you think that you can write a business plan, if your job isn't to write a business plan, you're absolutely wrong. The best money I have spent in this company was to pay a professional business writer to do my business plan and sit with me for weeks and pick my brain and take all my ideas and what my goals were and what I was trying to accomplish, and to take all my information and put it into a plan that was concise and easy to read and professional. If you can afford it, it's worth it. And that's probably the best piece of advice that I'll give anybody in this audience that is trying to start a business.
Or you can come talk to us at the Technology Incubator. As a nonprofit, we might be able to help you.
That's a very good point. If you can seek a nonprofit like the USC Technology Incubator to help you with that, because they have volunteers that do the same thing that don't charge you, great. So I guess I know where my next business plan's coming from.
With that, I thank all of you so much for being here tonight. Don't feel like you have to run out. There is still food and beverages outside, so please help yourselves. Or if you do want more information about the Technology Incubator, or even activities that are happening with the university, with private industry, with the Office of Economic Engagement, come find me. I'm here. So thank you guys all so much for being here tonight. We actually do have another one of these scheduled for July 23rd, I believe. With John Denise and with his company. It's called Advanced Automation Consulting. He was one of the very first companies to come out of the incubator. So hope to see you back in July.
And if anybody has any questions for me, I'll be hanging around that didn't get answered. Please come up and talk to me. Feel free. I'll answer any of your questions out there.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.